sheep, or along by Siloam's fountains, helping the weak. Footprints of Jesus that make the pathway glow. We will follow the steps of Jesus wherever they go. If they lead through the temple, holy, preaching the word, or in homes of the poor and lowly, serving the Lord. Footprints of Jesus that make the pathway glow. We will follow the steps of Jesus wherever they go. By and by through the shining portals, turning our feet, we shall walk with the glad immortals, heaven's golden street. Footprints of Jesus that make the pathway glow. We will follow the steps of Jesus wherever they go.
Good evening, and thank you for being with us in our Wednesday evening Bible class of the Boone Church of Christ. There's a soap opera called Days of Our Lives. I say is a soap opera because it's still in production. I didn't realize it, but it's still going on. And it begins with a picture of an hourglass set against a backdrop of a blue sky with white clouds. And the sands in the hourglass are slowly trickling down from the top of the hourglass into the bottom. And during this opening scene, for 55 years now, the following words are said by the narrator. Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. And it's true. The passage of time marches on. The Bible also talks about the passage of time. Psalm chapter 90, verse 4. For you, 1,000 years are as a passing day, as brief as a few night hours. God doesn't see time the way that we do. Psalm 90, verse 10. 70 years are given to us. Some even live to 80. But even the best years are filled with pain and trouble. Soon they disappear, and we fly away. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. But you must not forget this one thing, dear friends. A day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. James chapter 4, verse 14. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here for a little while, and then it's gone. Psalm 90, verse 12. Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15. So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but live like those who are wise. And then finally, 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 11. Search for the Lord and for his strength. Continually search for him. You know, this is just a sampling of verses. And if we were to summarize the main principles in these verses, we might say, our time on earth is a gift from God. Our time on earth goes by very quickly. And recognizing the brevity of life should give us wisdom in our approach to life. And finally, that wisdom should compel us to seek God. You know, there are many options in life regarding how we spend our time. Some of them are obviously spiritually destructive, and we know that we need to avoid those. Some options are, to a certain extent anyway, just neutral. In other words, they aren't spiritually destructive, but neither are they necessarily spiritually productive. So, while fine to participate in, we certainly wouldn't prioritize them. But there is another realm, and this is what we want to spend a few minutes talking about tonight. There are activities that are spiritually productive, and they consist of things that we ought to be doing. Some of these activities are good to do, but some of them are considered best to do. So what I'm saying is there are priorities even within spiritually productive activities. This comes to light in a story found in Luke chapter 10, where Jesus is in Martha's home visiting Martha and Mary. Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do the work? Tell her to come and help me." But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." Let's talk about Martha's choice for a minute. First, Martha's choice was not a bad choice. She was doing things that needed to be done. Martha, though, was distracted by the big dinner that she was preparing. And do you blame her for feeling maybe a little bit overwhelmed? Jesus and his disciples were there, and this could have been a much larger group than just Jesus and the 12. Jesus had many followers. The word distracted involves being tangled or being pulled, as if you're being pulled in two opposite directions. It seems that Martha may have wanted to hear Jesus too, but felt compelled to pursue her duties first. Distraction can be a major obstacle to accomplishing anything that we deem important. Businesses have a focus that complements their business plan, and that focus drives their choices. And the practice of defining their focus and executing it is what makes a business successful. People also will define a primary focus in their lives, and like a business, that focus defines their choices. As Christians, the primary focus in our lives needs to be spiritually based, and that focus will drive our choices. If we lose our spiritual focus, we'll have a problem, and it is a problem that must be corrected. It appears that Martha may have temporarily lost her focus. Luke chapter 10, verse 40, this is out of the NLT. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits there while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me." And here's Luke chapter 10, verse 40, the same verse out of the New American Standard Bible. But Martha was distracted with all her preparations, and she came up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do the serving by myself? Then tell her to help me." Okay, let me read two phrases from each of these translations again. Martha came to Jesus and she said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work?" And then Luke chapter 10, 40, same verse, again in the NASB, but just this one phrase. "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do the serving by myself?" Let's look at some indications here that Martha may have lost her focus, at least temporarily. Do we see any self-pity and maybe some anger? My sister has left me to do all the serving myself. How about maybe a false sense of self-importance? Do you detect any of that? You know, she feels strongly enough to go to Jesus to have him correct Mary. She was willing to interrupt Jesus to make this happen. Martha evidently felt that what she was doing was more important than what Mary was doing. Did Martha also think that her task of serving was more important than Jesus' task of teaching? She even questioned Jesus' care and concern for people. Lord, do you not care about this? Because as far as Martha in that moment was concerned, if Jesus cared, he'd tell Mary to help her. Do we ever do that? Do we ever accuse God of not caring? In fact, do we ever accuse God of not caring because we've already decided what his care should look like? Well, what about Mary's choice? Mary's choice is pretty simple. Mary chose the best. Regardless how that strikes us, Jesus makes that plain. Mary chose the best. Choosing the best means being in the right place and listening to the right voice. Being in a position of humility before Jesus and listening to his voice. And doing it in spite of distractions. And that's exactly what Mary did. Choosing the best requires setting priorities. Mary wanted to hear Jesus' teaching. In that culture, sitting at the feet of a teacher, well, that was generally reserved for men. But Mary hungered for God's word. Mary's priority was being close to Christ. Here are some quotes about this story from a few of the commentaries that I have. It must be hard to hear that Mary has made the better choice. Jesus shows no anger toward Martha, nor does he impose a stereotypical woman's role on either of the women. He merely tries to clarify what should have been the highest priority at the moment. And he deals more with their attitudes than with their actions. The story of Martha and Mary underscores the importance and priority of learning at the feet of Jesus, that is, being his disciple. It was not the frantic activity of Martha that won Jesus' commendation, but the quiet activity of Mary, who sat at the feet of her Savior, listening intently to his teaching. Here's another quote. Was Jesus downgrading hospitality, food preparation, or hard work? No. All of these things are good in the right time and the right place. Rather, he was stressing the need to develop priorities. One of the challenges of life is to choose between that which is good and that which is best. When we become fretful about the temporary and the transient, we need to remember that only one thing is necessary. We have to decide that being Jesus' disciple is the most important spiritual activity in our lives. And yes, Jesus served others. And to be his disciple, we too must serve others. But that is not the first priority in discipleship. The first priority in discipleship is communing with our Lord. Jesus contrasted the many things that Martha was doing with the one thing that Mary was doing. And Jesus said that what Mary chose was best. You and I must determine our spiritual priorities too. We must choose what is best. Here are a couple of quotes I came across about spiritual priorities. Stephen Covey comments on the unreal expectations of our day in his book, First Things First, when he says, people expect us to be busy, overworked. It's become a status symbol in our society. If we're busy, we're important. If we're not busy, we're embarrassed to admit it. Busyness is where we get our security. It's validating, popular, and pleasing. It's also, listen to what he says here, a good excuse for not dealing with the first things in our lives. In the book, The Life You've Always Wanted by John Ortberg, he tells us about a time he asked a friend for some spiritual direction. Ortberg described the pace of life in Chicago, the rhythms of his family life, and the condition of his heart. He wanted to know what he could do in order to be spiritually healthy. After a long pause, his mentor answered, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." Ortberg wasn't satisfied with this answer, so he asked once more what he could do. "There is nothing else," the man said. As he reflected on that advice later, Ortberg made this observation: hurry is the great enemy of the spiritual life in our day. Hurry can destroy our souls. Hurry can keep us from living well. Listen to what he says here. For many of us, the great danger is not that we will renounce our faith. It is that we will become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we will settle for a mediocre version of it. Here's a personal challenge question I saw. Are you, by nature, more like Mary or Martha? At church meetings or similar gatherings, are you more attentive to the needs of the group or the content being discussed? Or are they equally important to you? Regardless of your natural tendencies, how can you ensure that you stay focused on what is better, the one thing that is needed? How about us? What do we seek first in this life? Do we seek first, above everything else, God's kingdom and his righteousness? Let's commit to making certain in our lives that we value God's teaching. So let's purpose to learn it by becoming students of his word. And let's purpose to live it by following him.
Say,